समझ नहीं आ रहा अपने सैलरी इंक्रीमेंट का क्या करूं।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स के एसआईपी का टॉपअप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
क्या समझ में नहीं आया?
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स का एसआईपी टॉपअप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
अब समझा।
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
While I do understand that the expectation from Cut the Clutter today is that we will give you answers over what happened with Vice President Jagdeep Dhankhar. Why this sudden resignation on the pretext of not being in good health? For health reasons, he was all right through the day. He was in Rajya Sabha chirping as usual, quite in good humor. What happened between 4:30 p.m. that day and 9:30 when he suddenly landed up in Rashtrapati Bhavan without an appointment with his resignation letter? And given the fact that it's formally written, it would have taken some time for this to be written, to be printed out, etc. So something happened between say 4:30 p.m. and say 8:30 p.m. or so. In about 3 to 4 hours, the equivalent of 2 sessions of a cricket test match, something happened. What happened? Don't ask me. I don't know. All I can do is I can take you back to a line that often buzzes in my head from a 1978 Devanand movie, Des Pardes. That was also Tina Munim's debut movie. Tina Munim Now Ambani. That was her debut movie. And there was a line there. There was a song there, to P or G. Apologies for that. But there was a line there which always comes to my head, buzzes in my head when something mysterious like this happens, when you know something really serious has happened, significant has happened, but you don't have an answer. And that line is, इसमें कितने राज छुपे हैं पूछो मेरे दिल से तुम, बैठे बैठे महफिल में होता है कोई कैसे गुम. That means, you know, how many secrets are hidden in here? Ask my heart. Except in this case, there is nothing in my heart that I can tell you. And this next line is, and how do you explain somebody suddenly disappearing from a gathering, a mehfil, a get-together, a gathering, which is exactly what's happened to India's Rajya Sabha. The chief, the chairman has suddenly disappeared at no notice. He's had a full day's work. He has also set the agenda for the next day. He's invited the members of the Business Advisory Committee of the Rajya Sabha for lunch to his home, where he said, we will then finalize the business for the rest of the session. But after that, some things happened and he has written this letter to the president, which you can see on your screens. I'm sure you've seen that letter many, many times. I've read this many times, upside down and from bottom up. I have not found anything written between the lines. His health through the day in the house, he was cheerful, he was active, he was animated, he was witty as usual. There was nothing to indicate a health problem. And also those who've seen him from close for a long time, they will tell you that he has not talked about a health problem. And if you see him walk, he might waddle a little bit while walking, but that's his natural gait. There is nothing to it. That's why the reasoning of health remains intriguing to say the least. And that is what makes this mystery even deeper, because something has happened in this case. Now, see the Prime Minister's tweet. Now, when this happened, we thought that there'll be statements from the Prime Minister, from the President, from other high functionaries of the government saying, we are very sorry, look after yourself. We had no idea, or frankly, why we had no idea, because if the Vice President of the country, if the second most important person in the country by way of protocol, constitutional protocol, was nursing a serious health ailment, then others would have known about it or should have known about it. It could not have been a surprise to them. However, the only thing we have not even seen a statement from Rashtrapati Bhavan, a statement accepting the resignation and then saying, we are sorry to know that you are not well and we wish you good health, etc., etc. You've served the country well. No. All we have seen is a tweet from the Prime Minister. And what I will do is, chances are that you've all either read it or or read about it or heard about it. But I think it is important that I repeat the whole text for you. The text is on your screens, on the one side in English, on the other in Hindi. I will still read it for you for emphasis. It says, Shri Jagdeep Dhankhar ji has got many opportunities to serve our country in various capacities, including Vice President of India. Nothing that says he's carried out all responsibilities or that he deserves the nation's gratitude or anything. Nothing. And then it goes on to conclude, wishing him good health. Not even I wish him good health. He's been a colleague for a long time. I have learned a lot from him. If you've seen Prime Minister Modi's style, he usually gives people very effusive farewells. That is like him. This note is not like him. This note is quite unlike him. In fact, it's also important that I read out to you the Hindi version of this, because the Hindi version, you might say that English sometimes can be a little bit terse, but if you read the Hindi version, it actually sounds or reads even more terse, bordering on the rude. It says, भारत के उपराष्ट्रपति श्री जगदीप धनखड़ जी को भारत के उपराष्ट्रपति सहित कई भूमिकाओं में देश की सेवा करने का अवसर मिला है. मैं उनके उत्तम स्वास्थ्य की प्रार्थना करता हूँ. This is basically so far so good. Go ahead. I won't miss you. May you live in good health. This is not even see you later. You've been a long partner in politics and public life. Nothing. This is as terse as anything I've seen from the Prime Minister. And as I said to you earlier, no one else has spoken out. So some things happened in that period. Now, what could have happened? We will not speculate. This is not in our nature to speculate on the print in any case, and most certainly not on Cut the Clutter. Never. If we know something, we will tell you. If we think we can make an educated guess, we shall tell you, but we will qualify it by saying it's an educated guess. In this case, we have neither. That's the reason I said that I can't even live up to that line. इसमें कितने राज छुपे हैं, पूछो मेरे दिल से तुम. There is nothing that I know in my heart, on my head, that I can share with you. In fact, just this morning, our political editor, D.K. Singh, and by implication I, because I was tagged on that tweet, we were sort of trolled or teased by Sandeep Ghosh, who's a well-known figure, formerly a corporate executive, but well-known figure in public debate and on Twitter, who said, waiting for D.K. Singh to tell us the inside story of his friend, Jagdeep Dhankhar's resignation. And this is tagged to me, on which I replied saying, if he knows anything, he better tell me first. So you can be sure that I've spent more than an hour sitting with D.K. Singh trying to put my head around it. Also, I've got a lot of background and knowledge from him. All of that adds up to, frankly, nothing. If you say you have all these facts, what is it that you arrive at the end? No. But what I have for you, there's an important but. What I have for you is a sequence of events and sequence of things that have happened that I'm sure is getting lost in the noise of TV debates, etc. Because what happens? Usually, people look at conspiracy theories. In this city, Delhi is it's an expression I use often, Chandu Khana. Chandu Khana is an opium den. So I'm not particularly judging people who go to an opium den because opium is legal in many parts of India. That said, what happens in an opium den? It's exactly what happens in a watering hole, in a club, in a bar, where people in power sit down and shoot the breeze. They have time. So what do? They exchange gossip, what they know for sure, what they don't know for sure. Then it becomes one quoting the other, and they take this gossip out. So a lot of what you see on your TV channels, a lot of the other news stories is basically conspiracy theorizing. There are 51 theories on this. Each of the 51 could be true, or maybe a combination could be true. So we will not do that. We will, however, give you what is being missed. We will give you line by line account of what happened between 4 and 4:30 p.m. on the 21st of this month in Rajya Sabha. That is Monday. That's the day the session begins. This is when the opposition is very active. In the morning, Mallikarjun Kharge has spoken out. I will talk about that in a couple of minutes. But let me just tell you, 4 o'clock. 4 o'clock, the chairman, Jagdeep Dhankhar, as chairman of the Rajya Sabha, he reads out a resolution. It was an impeachment motion. Now, impeachment is not an expression that the Constitution uses. Constitution talks about removal of a judge. So this was a notice for the removal of a judge, which in common language we call impeachment. He said that there was this resolution signed by 63 members of the Rajya Sabha for the removal of Justice Yashwant Verma, formerly of Delhi High Court, subsequently transferred to Allahabad High Court after allegations that burning cash was found in his official residence in Delhi. Now, 63 members had signed this motion. He took it up. He took it up, and then see what happens. I will read some of this chapter and verse, and I leave it to you to also see how this might have triggered some kind of a conflagration or some kind of a confrontation, because there are things linked to this that I will take you to. So he said that these members have moved this motion under Article 2171B, read with Article 218 and Article 124. Article 124 is about appointment and removal of judges of the Supreme Court. In this case, he refers to Article 124 and sub-Article 4 of the Constitution, among some other laws and constitutional articles as well. Then he says, I have asked the Secretary General to find out if a similar motion is also moved in the other house. That is very important. And I will just read from what he said. He said, if a similar motion is moved in the upper house, because in Rajya Sabha, I am now explaining it, in Rajya Sabha, for a motion like this to be admitted, it must be signed by at least 50 members, at least 50 members. So he says under Judges Inquiry Act of 1968, in Lok Sabha, such a motion has to have 100 signatures. In Rajya Sabha, such a motion has to have 50 signatures, which he says is the case in Rajya Sabha with this motion that has been moved. But then he says the procedure is different whether a motion like this has been moved in one house on one day or in both houses on the same day. Let's try and understand what that means. What that means is if two houses see these motions moved on different dates, then the house where the motion was moved first, that house, the chairperson, the chairman in this case of Rajya Sabha or the speaker in case of Lok Sabha, that authority, either chairman of Rajya Sabha or speaker of Lok Sabha, depending on where the motion was presented first, only that authority will have the power to set up an inquiry committee, a committee of three. However, if both motions have been moved on the same day in both houses, then this will be a joint committee. That's a very important distinction. Now, you might say this is speculation, but this, I think, is in the realm of educated guesswork, which is that this judge has to face these proceedings. Even the BJP in Lok Sabha has been wanting it, and BJP members have also signed for his impeachment in Lok Sabha. But BJP would have much rather had this carried out in Lok Sabha than in Rajya Sabha. One, because they have better numbers in Lok Sabha, and second, the presiding officer in Rajya Sabha is really not from the BJP roots. He's not an RSS man. He's not been in BJP for a long time. In fact, he has fought many elections against the BJP. As we go on, I will tell you a bit more about him in just a couple of minutes, because he's been through a school of hard knocks in many different ways. So the BJP would probably trust the Speaker of Lok Sabha a lot more than the Chairman of Rajya Sabha with something as sensitive as that, particularly as one more such motion was pending, in this case in Rajya Sabha. Now you must remember, one is a motion. Members can move a motion against a judge. However, the clock on it starts running, or the procedure on it starts only when the presiding chief of the house admits it. So Lok Sabha Speaker has to admit a motion like this. The Rajya Sabha chairman has to admit a motion like this. So he did not admit that motion. He would have, however, wanted it to bring it up to the Business Advisory Committee before doing that. So please stay with me as I go on and read some more lines. The other issue with one house or two houses is simple one, which is who gets the credit for this. Because at this point, I think I've said this earlier, that nothing unites our our parties across all political divides than a fight against an institution they all either dread or they all think is getting too powerful. That's the reason the National Judicial Appointments Commission Act was passed with near unanimity, no debate, no halla, no adjournment. It went through like it went like a butter through knife. I'm using a cliche, but that is the only description I can use for how that NJAC Act was passed. I would even say like a hot knife, like a heated knife, red hot knife through butter. It went through like that. So that is when they get together. So on this impeachment issue, the opposition and the Treasury benches are together. The motion in Lok Sabha has been moved jointly by opposition parties and the ruling party and the ruling coalition. If this motion had been admitted in Rajya Sabha, it would have looked like an opposition initiative. Because in this one, the opposition had not reached out to the BJP to ask for their concurrence or to say that we should move a motion in this house as well. So that could be one reason as well. But once again, it's a question of could be. However, what I've told you is a fact. What I've told you is not guesswork. It's a fact. What it led to, we can't be sure. Dhankar explained this intricacy that if it's presented in both houses, in two houses on different dates, then the first house and that house alone carries this forward. The second motion in the other house doesn't go forward because that house then becomes non-jurisdictional. That is the word that he has used. He's not saying that he's admitting it or refusing to admitting it. In fact, he then asked the law minister, Arjun Ram Meghwal, who was a former IAS officer from Rajasthan, is a Dalit leader. He asked him, Honorable Law Minister, are you aware, has a motion been moved? That's in Lok Sabha. And he says, yes, I think it's 152. That means 152 members in Lok Sabha have signed for a motion like that. At which point, the Vice President says that there will be a meeting of Business Advisory Committee. Now, that he was to hold a meeting of the Business Advisory Committee immediately after this, at 4:30, was pre-decided. So, once this conversation was over, he moved to the Business Advisory Committee meeting. Now, Business Advisory Committee of the House, you would expect that the Parliamentary Affairs Minister of the central government will be there, Kiran Rijiju in this case, and also the Leader of the House. The Leader of the House, Rajya Sabha, is JP Nadda, currently Health Minister and also the BJP party president. However, as the BAC met, both JP Nadda and Kiran Rijiju were not present. I think some reason was given about them being preoccupied with something else, but Business Advisory Committee of the House doesn't meet all of a sudden. These are all pre-decided, pre-scheduled meetings and important ones. So how can the Leader of the House and Parliamentary Affairs be missing? They were represented, on the other hand, by the party's Chief Whip, BJP's Chief Whip, K. Lakshman, and also Minister of State for Parliamentary Affairs, L. Murugan. That, once again, we are going into realm of guesswork and speculation, but this is based on a fact. The fact is that the two senior-most people from the BJP were missing in this meeting. The Vice President could have seen it as a slight, or maybe this was an intended snub because he had taken up this motion obviously without consulting the ruling party, because after all, whatever the pretense of these constitutional people in constitutional authority being non-partisan, no such thing exists in real life. And BJP might have been upset that he has done this. And after that BAC meeting finished, where Nadda and Rijiju were not present, he invited all the members to his home the next day, saying, we will not decide today what the business of the house will be, but we'll meet at my home for lunch and there we will decide. So that's how normal things had looked until then. The BJP, it's possible. Once again, it's possible, but I'm giving you the fact that exists based on which we might say this is possible. It is possible that the BJP also had some anger that immediately after talking on the Yashwant Verma impeachment motion, he took his reference back to a pending motion, a motion pending since December last year. Since December last year, for the removal of Justice Shekhar Yadav also of Allahabad High Court. There he said that this motion is pending. Now that is not a motion that BJP wanted to move forward. And as I explained to you what the issue there is, you will understand why. Akalmand ko ishara kafi hai. I don't have to underline anything to you. I don't have to idiot-proof anything. So he said that there is one more motion sitting there where 55 members have signed. He said, however, one of the members has signed twice. Now, even if one has signed twice, it's still 54. So the minimum of 50 has been achieved. But why has it been signed? And then he said, we should hold an inquiry to get to the bottom of the issue, that how come one has signed twice? Because he said that the member whose signature appears twice, he has declined his second signature. And that makes the matter a little more serious. I'm quoting him exactly. It makes the matter a little more serious. It was required of me then to go to the bottom of the issue. I'm quoting him. It was required of me then to go to the bottom of the issue, find out whether the representation was meriting consideration, and the process was initiated for verification of the signature and authentication. He said, in any case, the motion has more than 50 signatures. That is a very loaded statement. I will explain to you why. But he said, but if not verified, if the signature is not verified or other signatures are not verified, then it is a very serious issue and culpable. The August House has to set very high standards. If we do not live up to the very high expectations of the people, then we will be pushing things deep under the carpet and not subjecting them to deep investigation. And then he said, I will discuss this matter, etc., etc. Such transgressions, he says, and I'm paraphrasing him, cannot be taken lightly. And then he takes you back to something that happened some time back. Remember, there was a bunch of 500 rupee notes found on the seat that Abhishek Manu Singhvi, as Rajya Sabha member from Congress party, he was occupying. Money was sitting there. Nobody claimed that money, and there was a little tamasha one day. Where was the money found? Why was the money found? From where did the money come? It made at least for one evening's prime time debates. However, in 500 rupee notes, how much money can you have sitting on an MP's seat? This fact, Jagdeep Dhankhar brought in again. And he said, we also remember that on seat number 222, a bundle of 500 rupee notes was found. No one owned it. No one has claimed it. That matter too deserves attention. Now, all of this came on an afternoon that followed a little dust up in the morning. Again, you have to hear my words carefully, and we'll also try and see if we can share a little clip with you. Definitely as a link with the description, but maybe even on the screen so you can watch it. This is when Mallikarjun Kharge has gotten up and he starts attacking the government on Operation Sindoor, saying India is diplomatically isolated, Trump is claiming that he mediated, etc. That's when JP Nadda, the leader of the House, stands up and protests and speaks out, and there is halla or noise in the House. In that process, JP Nadda says, now we don't know why he said it, in that process, JP Nadda says, nothing will go on record, only what I say will go on record. Now, this is something that a member of the House, even the leader of the House, is not supposed to say. That power only lies with the Speaker of Lok Sabha or chairman or deputy chairman of the Rajya Sabha, or whoever is in chair in Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha. That power lies with the chair, not with the member. So he said this. Now, the fact is that Dhankhar himself, he was no darling of the opposition. Now you see all opposition leaders, all Congress leaders, all feeling bad for him, all wanting to know what happened, how was injustice done to him. The fact is, he's no favorite of the opposition. He, in fact, has been a very faithful warrior for Modi government and the BJP. And the fact that he knows his constitution, India's constitution and laws inside out, that's been his strength. So it's the opposition which have been abusing him of partisan conduct. And the same month of December, when this motion was moved against Justice Shekhar Yadav, a motion for his removal also was moved by the opposition parties. That was dismissed by Deputy Chairman Harivansh on a technicality, and Jagdeep Dhankhar then later said that was a bit like a rusted vegetable knife, sabzi kaatne ka knife, used for a bypass surgery. So that died a natural death or an unnatural death, depending on which side you are on. I'm using it only to tell you that Jagdeep Dhankhar was not a favorite of the opposition. If anything, the opposition greatly resented him, complained about him. It's only now that many of them are saying that he pulled us up, he pulled the ruling party also up. But that is not what they were saying until this Monday, until this Monday evening, until stuff hit the fan late this Monday evening. Now, what was that Justice Shekhar Yadav issue? Because I am just giving you the threads, right? You can join them. I am giving you the obvious threads, and there are some obvious conclusions, but in this city of Delhi, in this benighted city, everything that looks obvious necessarily does not come out true. That's what we can do is look at facts. So Shekhar Yadav is a judge of Allahabad High Court who on 8th of December 2024 appeared at a Vishwa Hindu Parishad VHB function, and he said many loaded things. So one of the things, and I'm paraphrasing and using some exact words which I will underline to you, he said Hindus don't expect Muslims to follow their culture, but they do not want them to disrespect it, right? That's one thing. Then he says, Hindus, from the moment a child is born, they lean on the teaching of the Vedas. They use Ved mantras, etc., to teach their children forgiveness and to feel sorrow in other beings' sorrows also. But if your children are shown slaughter of animals since childhood, how will they develop compassion? So you know what he's talking about. Then he says, in Hinduism, things that were not quite right or which had become outdated, the system of sati, johar, untouchability, all of them have been outlawed. If that can be done, and that's been done because we want to give women the respect that the Shastras and Vedas say should be given to them. In this situation, you cannot say, now he doesn't say who cannot say, but you know who's you in this case. You cannot say we have the right to keep 4 wives, have the right to give halala, we have the right to pronounce talaq thrice. And then he says, not everybody from this community, he doesn't name the community, but Akalmand ko ishara kafi hai, you understand what he's talking about, who he's talking about. Not everybody from this community is bad, but Katmullahs are fatal for the country. Now, Katmullah is an expression that's used as a pejorative for Muslims in a certain kind of debate. It's not an expression that's used in civilized debate. All of that said, just a couple of minutes or maybe a minute and a half on Jagdeep Dhankhar, the hero or the victim or the villain, depending on which side you are on, or maybe the item number of this show. Maybe he will just fade away. We don't know. But just learn about him, because in many ways he represents the strength of Indian system, because he was born in not a well-to-do family in 1951. He's 74 now. He's still 1 year away from being 75. So that question you can rule out immediately. He'll be 75 on May of 18 next year, 2026. So he's got no problem there. And he had his tenure until 2027. Again, no problem there. And he had said just the other day that he will retire on his retirement date in August 2027. That said, he was born in May 18, 1951. He was born in the village of Kithana in Jhunjhunu, quite backward then, quite dry. He walked miles to his school every day in Gardana, but he was bright. So he got a full scholarship to go to Sainik School of Chittorgarh in 1962, and then rose to become a lawyer, first in Rajasthan, then came to Supreme Court, and a top lawyer. In fact, he's been described often as the most underrated senior counsel in the Supreme Court of India. He has said to me many times, that much I can tell you, he has said to me many times in many conversations that for many years running, he was the highest tax-paying lawyer in New Delhi. So he was a very successful senior counsel in Delhi as well. He was Haryana's counsel in the Satluj-Yamuna link canal dispute. He also got Salman Khan bail in the Black Buck case. But also look at his political journey. His political journey is not very different from that of most Jat leaders in Haryana, Rajasthan or Western UP, the three sides of Delhi. 1989, on Janata Dal ticket, he contested from Jhunjhunu and won. He became Minister of State for Parliamentary Affairs briefly in Chandrasekhar's brief government from 21st November 1990 to 21st June 1991. That was a short-term government. 1991, now Ghat Ghat ka pani piya. He's been everywhere, like any Jat leader in the vicinity of Delhi. By 1991, he was in Congress party, contested from Ajmer, lost. 1993, he became MLA from Kishangarh, which is next to Ajmer. 1998, he contested again from the Congress party in Jhunjhunu, again lost. 2003, he was admitted in BJP. That is the year that the BJP won power in Rajasthan and Vasundhara Raje became BJP's chief minister in Rajasthan. However, from day one, Dhankar and Vasundhara Raje did not get along. The fact that they had fallen out was quite well known in BJP politics. Later, he was in the group that used to meet at Arun Jaitley's house to discuss and deliberate on the legal issues from the Ayodhya Ram Janmabhoomi issue, which was in court. After all that hard work for 16 years in the BJP, he was rewarded as West Bengal governor. And in the course of time, I will share this story with you, this piece that D.K. Singh had written. He became to BJP's governors in the various Raj Bhavans what Yogi Adityanath was to BJP's chief ministers, because he was exercising the power of a Raj Bhavan in a manner that very few had done, because everything he did was backed with law. For example, just to give you a small example from DK's piece, West Bengal government wrote to him to convene an assembly session at 2 a.m. That was a mistype, inadvertent mistype. So he said yes, okay, 2 a.m. and also wrote a tweet saying history is being made, assembly will meet at 2 a.m. Chief Secretary wrote to him saying it was an inadvertent error. He said, no, but you don't have the authority to change it. You have to get the cabinet to change it. Mamata Banerjee called him, he did not listen. So cabinet had to meet again and once again send him a request to convene the assembly at 2 p.m. He could use lawfare as probably no one has done in a Raj Bhavan. He could teach all the rest of the BJP governors a little lesson on how to use the law to give trouble to a non-BJP government in the state. And he was constantly at odds with the Supreme Court, particularly since he became prominent in national politics. He opposed the Supreme Court judgment on the 2015 NJAC Act on the basis of the basic structure of constitution. He also attacked the concept of basic structure. That's why it's difficult to see what could he have done normally to annoy the BJP as much as he seems to have done. However, are we making a presumption that he's annoyed the BJP? Because nobody has told us anything. This departure is a little bit like the departures we might have seen in tighter political systems, like say Soviet Union of the past or China of today, when a senior person disappears from their position and you don't understand and you don't realize for a long time why this happened and what has happened. This departure right now is looking a little bit like that. However, this is India, right? India of 2025 is not Soviet Union of the 60s or 50s or not Beijing of today. So facts, details, controversies, arguments, counter-arguments will come out, and as they do, we'll keep on sharing them with you.